This is USVI News, your Virgin Islands connection.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us for USVI News. I'm Emily Matson. We begin with an update on coronavirus here in the U.S. territory. Our USVI News' Ali Bourne-Vanek reports from St. Thomas.
Emily, there have been milestones in success when it comes to the territory's COVID vaccination centers. St. Thomas just administered its 5,000th vaccination, bringing the total amount of vaccinations in the territory to just over 33,000. However, Governor Bryan did discuss that while we are having this success with the COVID vaccination centers and COVID vaccinations in the territory, we are seeing the COVID rate rise. In the last week, we have seen 23 new cases in St. Thomas and 68 in St. Croix, bringing the territory's COVID positivity rate to about 4%. And the reason for this is hard to say, but Governor Bryan did mention that we are seeing an uptick in COVID cases in Florida. And with Florida being so close to the Virgin Islands, it's not surprising that we are also seeing an uptick here in the territory.
We are seeing instances where people are attending parties both here and in the territory and on the mainland, particularly in the state of Florida, that do not follow the guidelines of the Virgin Islands, and as a result, we are seeing that manifesting itself here in the Virgin Islands as an uptick as people coming back from their weekend. Just this weekend, the mayor of Miami Beach implemented an 8 p.m. curfew based on the poor judgment exercised by some people in that area. This is of particular concern to us here in the territory, as Miami is really a major travel hub for us. And I know a lot of you have been doing the weekend getaway thing into that, coming back into the territory. I'm urging you today, if you have recently visited this area, please do the right thing and make sure you get yourself tested and you isolate yourself for a couple of days so we can keep our community safe. We have been doing really well, and we have managed to strike that balance between protecting the public health, keeping our economy afloat, and allowing individuals to enjoy again some of the leisure of the pre-pandemic life. But we can easily lose our footing on that tightrope if we don't do the right thing, because we have been so successful thus far. There have been too many instances where residents frequenting areas that are either surging or still considered to be COVID hotspots have created a little problem here at home. In the past, people leaving the territory to attend events in the States have been the direct cause of outbreaks here. We can only implement testing protocols and other safety measures at our ports, and that is why we encourage Virgin Islanders to avoid unnecessary travel.
And with the Easter holiday weekend upon us, Governor Bryan also encouraged residents to stay safe and sanitize and do the best you can to social distance, as this is a time when a lot of family and friends and people come together. So we do see an uptick in COVID cases when we have this holiday weekend. So again, he encouraged everybody to stay as safe as possible as we try to bring the COVID rate back down. In St. Thomas, Ali Bourne-Vanek, USVI News.
Thank you, Ali, for that update. And as Governor Bryan mentioned, the spread of the virus in Miami is concerning here because it's a major travel hub for the VI. In Miami Beach, Florida remains under a state of emergency due to COVID concerns. This after large crowds gathered for spring break over the weekend. Travel to the Sunshine State has hit record levels recently, even though cases in many places continue to rise. Reporter Elise Preston has more from Florida.
Officials in Miami Beach have announced they're extending an 8 p.m. curfew in highly trafficked areas through April 12th. That after thousands of spring breakers, many maskless, flooded the streets, defying a Saturday night emergency curfew. The SWAT team needed to help break up the crowd, which some fear could spark a new coronavirus surge. The city's mayor announced the extended measure during an emergency virtual session yesterday.
There's 1,000 infections a day on most days, and 50 to 100 people are still checking into the hospital every day in Dade County. And our city isn't escaping that, even with so much of the vaccine being delivered.
Florida is leading the country in cases of the highly contagious variants first discovered in the UK and Brazil. Still, some vacationers insist the strict measures Miami Beach is implementing are excessive.
I'm from Detroit. They come to our city and act up, but our mayor don't make it a curfew because of that.
As more than a dozen states are seeing rising COVID cases, Americans are increasingly on the move. More than 1.4 million flyers went through U.S. airports on Friday, setting a pandemic record. Still, health experts remain cautiously optimistic, thanks primarily to more than 81 million American adults having received at least one vaccine dose.
There's enough of a backstop here that I don't think you're going to see a fourth surge.
More than 13% of the U.S. population is fully vaccinated. Elise Preston, CBS News.
And the United States is picking up the pace in COVID-19 vaccine race. According to new numbers from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the U.S. is now vaccinating about 3 million people per day. President Biden set a goal of administering 100 million doses by his 100th day in office, and he's already exceeded that goal, with the CDC now reporting 124 million vaccines have been administered in the U.S. And a reminder, Virgin Islanders can schedule vaccinations online through the Department of Health website. That website is covid19usvi.com/vaccine. Currently, vaccinations are open to the general public. All Virgin Islanders ages 16 years old or older are now eligible to receive the vaccine, and residents without internet access can still book appointments by calling the Vitima hotline. That number is 340-777-VAX. That's 8227. Now, there's a Monday through Friday community vaccination clinic center open in St. Croix and St. Thomas, and vaccinations are being offered every Saturday in April in St. John as well. Well, the search continues for a woman who disappeared more than 2 weeks ago now in St. John. VIPD are continuing to ask for your help in finding 41-year-old SARM Heslop. She was last seen back on March 7th aboard the vessel Siren Song that was off the coast of St. John. VIPD says so far they've been unable to conduct a thorough investigative search of the catamaran she was last seen on, as Heslop's companion, identified as Ryan Bain, is refusing to let investigators get on board to do so. Bain reported her missing at 2:30 in the morning on March 8th. Many of Heslop's friends have spoken to USVI News and continue to ask the community for help in finding Heslop in the search, and also they thanking everybody for their efforts. Volunteers, the National Park Service, and the VIPD have all conducted vigorous searches of the St. John waterways to help find Heslop, unfortunately with no luck. VIPD says they're working the case daily and continue to comb through hours of surveillance video as part of its investigation. And we'll, of course, continue to keep you posted with any updates as this story develops. Some good news if you're like many longing for a vacation after enduring a long year of COVID-19 travel restrictions or waiting for an economic bounce back. After a year at anchor, a major cruise liner is planning to set sail from the Bahamas just in time for summer vacations, but there is a few catches. Now, Royal Caribbean is marking its 2021 return to the Caribbean with cruises from the Bahamas set to depart in June. They're available only to adults who have been fully vaccinated against COVID-19 and those under 18 who have tested negative for the virus. All passengers on the 7-night cruises must meet Bahamas COVID-19 travel requirements, which could include taking additional tests before and after arrival. The cruise liner says additional health and safety measures will be announced at a later date. Royal Caribbean's sister cruise line, Celebrity Cruises, is also getting on board with plans to set sail in June with fully vaccinated adult passengers and crew members. The cruise industry, of course, was hit hard by the coronavirus pandemic last year as several ships across the world became sources of major COVID-19 outbreaks. In North America, cruise companies were forced to halt sailings as countries enacted strict travel restrictions. Royal Caribbean has been offering trips in Singapore since late 2020 with no port stops and only available to Singapore residents. And so far, get this, the cruise line has been able to avoid any outbreaks on the ships. The CDC says it has not said yet when cruises can resume in the U.S. The CDC is the one who is going to make that call when cruises can begin again, specifically here in the VI. Again, we don't know as we're waiting for the CDC to make a call on that. Well, members of Congress are proposing an alternative path for Puerto Rico's future status with the United States. People living in the U.S. territory want it to become a state, but the measure is proposing something a bit different. Our USVI News Washington correspondent Matt Knadler is taking a closer look at the options which are currently on the table.
On Thursday, New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez and New York Congresswoman Nydia Velázquez introduced a new option for voters to determine Puerto Rico's future. That includes the option of statehood, free association with the United States, or even independence.
For decades, we have witnessed the shortfalls and inequities born out of the U.S. current territorial arrangement.
The group of Democrats want to create a status convention where delegates voted on by the people would develop long-term solutions for Puerto Rico.
We are not telling them what to discuss. We are saying in the bill that it should be any option that is outside the territorial clause.
This latest measure comes just weeks after Puerto Rico's non-voting member of Congress, Jennifer Gonzalez Colon, a Republican, introduced legislation that would create a direct path to statehood. It's similar to a measure Hawaii and Alaska took in the 1950s.
We cannot vote for our commander-in-chief. We do not have 4 members of Congress, but yet Congress has all power over us.
Gonzalez Colon is directly opposed to the alternative proposal. In a statement, she calls it a colonial imposition that directs power to a select few. In November, the majority of Puerto Rican voters and Puerto Rico's new governor, Pedro Pierluisi, approved a non-binding referendum supporting statehood.
I respect those who advocate for other status options, but the Puerto Rican people made a clear democratic choice, expressing that statehood is their preferred path forward.
In Washington, Matt Knadler reporting.
Interesting to see what will happen in our neighboring territory of Puerto Rico.